Hello and welcome to the video. I'm Jimmy the Mower and today we're going to be adjusting the cutting height on a Ransomes Parkway Magna 250 cutting head. So adjusting the height of cut on these cylinder mowers really isn't as hard as some people make out. We've taken this one off a Ransomes Parkway 3. However, they've come off Ransomes Commanders, Ransom Highways, any Ransomes mower really, all the way back. So pretty similar mechanics to a hater mower and things like that. Anything that's got a rear roller and is dragged or pushed along. Now, this is a Magna 250 cutting head. It also works for the Sport 200s and the Magna lights. If you can move along, cutting grass in this direction, you've got a rear roller behind. There's a pivot bar on the top. This pivot bar connects to your machine. If it's a cutter's on the front, it's being pushed along. If it's a cutter on the underneath, it's being pulled along. So we're using this one because it's better for demonstration purposes. It's got a shorter bar and you can see how it works. So we've got it here like this and we've got the rear roller. Now on the side here we've got two adjusters. There's one either side, and to adjust those you need a 19mm socket or a spanner or ratchet spanner, whatever you've got available. Now there's some little rings on there and those rings just indicate a certain distance apart. When the cutting heads are new, these are a couple of years old, these rings are a really good guide. We normally set the cutting head up. This is a new rear roller on here that we've put on. We normally set these up at about number 4 ring and then we turn it round and we get the height of cut exact. So we put number 4 each side, you're going to have it pretty balanced. However, on an older cutting unit, they do tend to warp a little bit and get knocked and banged, and they might not run true. So when you're checking the final height of cut, you may have to adjust these slightly. But as a guide, it's a pretty good place to start. First of all then, let's have a look at these rings and how we actually set them. What you need is a 19mm socket or spanner. And you put it on the top and it just sits on there like this. When you turn it round, pull it towards me a few times, you'll probably see that this is starting to move out. And as this moves out, it's pushing the roller further down away from the main body. And this actually lifts the cylinder up and the bottom cutting blade up and gives us a greater height of cut. Now we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, we're on 5 rings there. And you can get it all the way up to about 6, I think. Not as we do very often. But you can lift it up to about there. And that's about 6 rings, and that's lifted this end of the cutting head right up in the air. Now, to just lower it back down, reverse your ratchet over or turn your screwdriver over and push it down. Now, I'm half expecting some grease to pop out the top of here because this is a brand new roller that we've put on here, and we've refurbished the roller assembly. So as we pull it down, I can go past number 4. I told you there'd be some grease coming out. Look, there's plenty in there. Grease nipples are on there. Make sure you put plenty of grease in all the time because these, you're adjusting them on a daily basis, if not half a dozen times a day, depending on what you're cutting and where. So I'll move that down there. That's pumping out loads of grease, and that's down to about number 3. I'll put it back up to number 4. And what we're going to do today is set the cutting height at 1 inch. Now, the way we do it is obviously by adjusting those, get them both on number 4 to start with, and then we use a piece of steel bar. We use the steel because it's a nice true flat on there, and you put it against the front edge of the blade and you adjust these up and down until we can feel across from the bottom blade onto there and we make sure it's flat. However, I've also got a piece of timber, and the timber I've got, the reason why I've got the timber is because it's a lot lighter than the bar. I should have painted this white, and I would have if I've got the time. But this is a lot lighter, and you can actually see this when I'm adjusting it up and down. And funnily enough, it's 1 inch this way, or more or less 1 inch, and it's about 1.5 inches this way. So you've got 2 cutting heights on here. If you're going to use this for setting up your cutting height, what I suggest is you get some timber and you plane it down, put it through a planer stroke thicknesser so it's the same all the way down. There's no rough bits, no gnarly bits or anything. But if you can use a piece of metal instead, piece of metal will always win because there's very little movement in the actual size of the metal, whereas this dries out or swells up, it can change it slightly. Right, So what we'll do now, we'll turn the cutting head around and we'll actually put the bar underneath and we'll just balance it up, and I'll show you exactly how that works. I've turned the cutting head around then and we've got it facing us now. So this is being pulled under the machine and the grass is coming along and it's cutting it here. Now, it's difficult to see with the camera, we'll bring you in a minute, but the cylinder meets the bottom blade right underneath here all the way along, and that's where the grass is cut. So that's where we need to adjust the height. I've got a spare bottom blade on a carrier here. It was ground up and it's been a spare for a while, but it could probably do with a bit of a shine, put an edge back on it again now. But with this one, I can just show you, this is the actual blade and this is where we set the cutting height. So I've got a smaller bar here and we can put that on, and what we do is we bring that bar or the blade up to the bar so it's there, and we run our finger across so we make sure that's flat all the way across. We bring it back to here and make sure it's flat again. Now, when you put these bottom blades on, if you put them on yourself, you need to send them away and have them ground up. For goodness sake, don't put them on and think that's it and put them in a machine and expect it to cut grass. Over the time, these bottom blade carriers warp slightly. The blades aren't always 100% because they're just manufactured and they come out. When they're actually put onto the cutting block itself, or the bottom blade holder or carrier, you put them on, you screw them on tight and you put them in a grinder machine, and they'll grind a flat on top and they'll grind a surface on the front, and that's designed to put a little point on there so the cylinder comes down and chops it like a pair of scissors along the length. If you look in the description, we've got a video on how to remove these bottom blades, put them back on and get them ground up. We use a company, a good friend of mine actually. We go and use his workshop. I haven't got the facilities here. But that's how it works anyway. So this is the edge that you're going to. It's a sharp edge, and we're trying to match this up with a sharp edge. So imagine that's the height of the grass, and we need it to about there. So you can set it to whatever. You can have an inch and a half. You're working in mil, 25, 30 mil, 50 mil, whatever you prefer. You just got to make sure that this is even right the way along. Now, what I'll do, I'll bring this piece of wood over, and like I said, we get the tape measure, and that's an inch or more or less, and that's about an inch and a half. So we'll put this block of wood underneath here at an inch and a half, and then we can get round to the back and I can adjust those up and down, probably reach them sitting here, and we'll just be able to show you exactly where we set that piece of wood right back against that bottom blade. And you'll just be able to see in practice. You know how to do it now because you've seen this, but we'll just do it back there to show you exactly how you do it. Now, you don't have to take the cutting heads off either to do this. You do it on the machine. I've just done this for display purposes, make it a bit easier. If you've got a workshop or somewhere where you store the mower, you can put it down onto a flat concrete floor, and it's easy to set. As long as your concrete floor is fairly level, it'll be all right. If worse comes to worst, a slabbed area, it'll work on there, or a car park. Sweep all the grit out and put it down. When you've been doing this as long as I have, you can more or less set them up by eye, and you'll remember the settings from place to place as you travel around, cutting different areas of grass in different places. So there you go. Right, we'll get you in close and we'll try and set up the cut and see if we can match this block of wood up to that bottom blade. I've put my block of wood under the cutting head, and hopefully we've got a light on here as well. Hopefully you can see a bit of a lip there above it. We've got our timber, and above there's the bottom blade. So I'm going to move the adjuster now, just turn it round with my 19mm socket. Believe it or not, when we put the block of wood under there, it was bang on 1.5 inches. You couldn't make this up because it just never happens. But anyway, I'll start to lower the cutting head down now. And as I lower it down, we're balancing it on the rear roller and lowering that blade slowly and surely. And as we get to about maybe there, a little bit more, probably there, we're probably about bang on with that now. We're as bang on as we can be with a piece of wood on a wooden bench. So you run your finger across the top, and there's no real lip between the top of the timber and the actual bottom blade. So that's this side of the cutting head sorted out. I can see in the middle that we're pretty much bob on as we should be, and I'll just move over to the other side and check that. That one will need a bit of adjustment because we messed around with this one as well. So we'll just move that one and adjust that up and just make sure it's perfect, and then I'll bring you back and we can explain what the rest of the cutting head does. So that's our cutting height all set up then at 1.5 inches, right? 1.5 inches, good for a football pitch, maybe a little bit lower, get it down to 1 inch, depends on what you're cutting and where you're cutting it. These will go anywhere from down to sort of, I don't know, about 20 mil all the way up to about 60, 70 mil. So if we work that out in inches, we'll probably get down to, well, we get down to about 15 mil, then probably about half an inch. And we can cut grass sort of all the way up to probably nearly 5 inches. If you say 110 mil to be on the safe side, that'd be just grand. Now, we've got some skids on the side here. You might have seen these while we've been talking about it. And these are designed to protect your bottom blade and the cutting cylinder. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. The whole thing runs on this pivot bar and the rear roller. Nothing else should really touch the floor. The pivot bar is designed so that the cutting head can move side to side when we're going over uneven ground even. It's easy for you to say. It can rock side to side like this. And then we've got an arm that attaches to this, and that allows the head to move up and down. So we've got side to side and up and down movement. So we can go over quite undulating ground and still get a good finish. However, if it gets a little bit too rough, these skids, with them being set below the bottom blade, they will come into contact with the ground first, and they will lift the cutting head up slightly on the side that touches the floor first, and it will save any debris, stones, sticks, whatever, going through there and damaging your cylinder or the actual bottom blade itself. Now, it's not foolproof. We tend to cut the grass a little bit shorter in most situations than other people do. That's because we like to see what's in the grass. I like to turn up somewhere and cut the grass and know that it's going to be short and debris free, and if there is anything, I can see it. If you're cutting at 2 inches, there's a lot of things that could be hiding in there, and they're difficult to spot, especially when you're moving at 5 or 6 miles an hour with one of these fantastic machines cutting the grass. Now, when these cylinders come down, this one's just been done. You can hear it scraping slightly against there. It's coming down and it's forming the cut, and they're like cut all the way along there. You need to maintain the speed of the cylinder. So check your bearings on a regular basis as well, because when you're cutting grass at this end with this blade, as we move along, it will start to cut with that, with that, with that. And as that one gets towards the end, this one will follow on. So they're overlapping all the time. That's why they're in a spiral. Fascinating, I know. It really is. But at least now you know how to set these up. It's simple. Like I said, car park, slabs, workshop floor, wherever your flatty surface is, get down, get them sorted out, get them cutting at the same height. Set this one up, set the other two up. Make sure you use your guide bar every time, and then you know that they're cutting perfectly. And wherever you go, you're going to do an absolutely fantastic job. Right, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you can. If you want to know any more about these, we've got loads and loads of videos. Just have a look at the links in the description. If you've got anything nice to say, or you know anything more about these cutting heads than I do, put that in the comments, because I'm always willing to learn. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm Jimmy the Mower. I'll catch you on the next one.